Welcome to the Golf Course, a modern forum for business conversations in insurance. I'm your host, Carrie Ann Nadeau, founder and CEO of ODN. I've invited Bradley Adams, Director of Partnerships for Keynectup, on the golf course. I meet many companies, but Keynectup stands out. They help customers put carriers' contact information into their phones so that when something goes wrong, the customer can simply ask, "Hey Siri, call my insurance carrier." Let's tee it off. So welcome back to the golf course. On the golf course with me today for a round of the podcast, we've got Bradley Adams. He's the Director of Partnership for a really interesting company called Keynectup. Bradley and I first met at a conference, and I have to say, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs. I meet a lot of people who want to pitch me their business. And Keynectup was just one that really stuck out to me as, something so simple. It just makes sense, right? Like it's almost so simple we can't not do it. So Bradley, welcome to the show. Let's kick it off. Tell us a little bit more about Keynectup and what you do for our audience.
Sure thing. Well, first and foremost, Karen, thank you for having me on here. It was a real treat to meet you at that conference, and I think you see the vision of where we're headed with insurance. And I think that was probably one thing I most appreciated about getting to know you was simply that you get it. You know, I feel like we're always getting over this hurdle trying to find those people that see the vision of where we can go. And I think you're one of the good ones. So I'm excited to see where you're going to go with this and the rest of your project.
Awesome. Well, like minds, I consider you a colleague.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you. So to tell you a little bit more about, for those who don't know about Keynectup just yet, I do consider Keynectup one of the best kept secrets in insurance, and just for the reason you described, Carrie Ann. Our technology is very uniquely placed to meet consumers where they are today. Technology, we all understand, is critical for improving the customer experience wherever they may be with insurance. And Keynectup is really focusing on that fulfillment part of the process. So the actual point when we've captured the customer, they know about our service, they've gone through the part of the process to purchase that product, and now how can we deliver it to them? Traditionally, like you've seen, a lot of insurance companies use a PDF or they'll use an email. And that doesn't necessarily help a consumer when they need to activate that product, right? They need to go dig through their email now or go through a filing cabinet if they still have one and go find that policy, right? And so with Keynectup, we're essentially able to take all that information that end consumer is usually provided, and we put it onto a custom contact card that can fit right within their phone. So no app needed here. We use technology that already exists on every device, and now that means that consumer is only one click away from the assistance they need.
It's a hell of a sales pitch. So let's break it down really quickly. And what sold me is when you handed me your business card. Can you tell me what's on your business card?
Sure. So I actually have a QR code on this card and an actual example of the Keynectup card. And so you can get my personal contact information as well. So even for the listeners of this podcast, if you open a text message and you text Bradley to our short link number, which is 444-999, you can download my contact card. So I use it for all my networking.
Let's break it down even simpler, because what's super cool, right? I hear a lot of companies, and what like drives me nuts is the alphabet soup of buzzwords. Our technology is blockchain enabled, AI powered, machine learning, right? Frankly, like ODN kind of does some of those things, and it's frustrating because as a company that actually authentically does those things, you struggle against, a company that is selling chips and soda and they're like, we're AI enabled bodega, right? No, you're not, right? You're a bodega, right? So what strikes me about your technology, look, it's a phone based technology. So I don't need any sort of complicated anything. My dad has one of these. He loses them all the time, but it's a product that he can use too. It's essentially adding your insurance carrier to your phone, right? Like it's so that when you need information, it's where you go when you look for information, which is today your phone, right? So talk a little bit more about the sort of ingenuity of its simplicity.
Sure. I mean, well, I think what you're touching upon is we've seen in the technology business always want to add a layer to something, right? You're just talking about this in InsurTech Insight. You know, everyone wants to put that next feature, the next calculation, whatever is going to make it that little bit degree better, perceivably. But once again, to your point, it adds all that complexion. And with our technology, and I think I know you're talking about my business card now, we say very clearly we're not an app. That's it. We break it down. We say, yeah, there is no additional technology needed here. The consumer doesn't have to go find us at an app store and then hope to get to the right spot. Once again, we are putting your insurance carrier's information right next to where you find mom and dad. You know, there's nothing too difficult. When you're a teenager, you get in trouble, you type mom in your contacts list and make the call, right?
Yeah.
So why should insurance be any different?
It's totally true, right? Like I get a flat tire, I call, my mom, say, shit, I'm broken down on the side of the road, come help. Or I can Google very quickly a tow truck company that's nearby. It's a little harder. I mean, I use, I think, Nationwide for my auto insurance. If I Googled Nationwide, the information I needed wouldn't be at my fingertips, right?
No, well, and in many cases too, I mean, I think Nationwide is pretty good in terms of having a mobile optimized website. But if you get to some of these other larger carriers, they might not even have a mobile optimized website yet. So even if you are on the side of the road now or at the bedside at a hospital, what are you going to do? You're going to go search that homepage, and best case scenario, you might find a form where you can submit, a need for contact, where some places might still have their phone number on. And that doesn't help the insured get to the product they've already purchased. We have to keep in mind that people have bought this product, right?
Yeah.
So, and in many cases, an insurance company is only going to have those two interactions with them, right? They're going to have the day that they buy the policy, or the day that you get the policy. And if you can't capitalize on either one of those experiences well right now, then you're looking in trouble at the next 10, 15 years of this business.
No, it's a great point about sort of the user-centered design movement of the insurance industry, right? We want to make sure that the applications we develop, first and foremost, it'd be great if they were all mobile friendly. Again, I keep grabbing the phone. That should be sort of table stakes. It's not, but we see a lot of companies come out and say, we're going to make the claims process seamless. Or we're going to build a universal platform to deal with from sales to underwriting and actuarial calculations to claims processing and customer automated experiences. All well and good, but if a customer can't find that system, it's sort of that step one that we've skipped over in the process that, again, so simple it's stupid. Like, how do they find you? So tell me a little bit more. I mean, I think there's a lot of distraction with customer focused applications, and the potential of those to change the industry, probably very important. How did you find the problem was actually they didn't know how to contact you?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because Keynectup actually started as a way to connect you professionally. So we were actually very much tailored to networking and driving those connections, being able to network with ease in a more modern sense without just your traditional business cards. And it was actually our other side of our business, which is the schools and universities, that really helped highlight the problem that insurance was having, because universities are having the same challenges too, right? So in a university, instead of having to provide necessarily an insurance product, they have to provide great service to students, right? And part of that service is their risk management. So you can look at a university that has their own local police department, their own counselor on staff, their own Title IX department handling their sexual assault cases. And when you're talking about a population of 40,000 students, it's very hard to fight for that attention, right? We hear the buzzwords all the time with Gen Zers, how they have an attention span less than a goldfish, right? So how can we make sure that as the students getting ready for this very exciting college experience, that safety is on their mind? And so when the college market kind of saw our product offering, they said, oh my goodness, you guys can be this simple tool that at the beginning of an orientation, we can put a QR code on the presentation and say, hey students, for 3 seconds, pull out Snapchat, pull out your scanners, pull out your camera apps and download our contact details on your phone.
Right.
And so then from there, they introduced us to a couple of travel assistants and insurance providers. And we really started asking some questions. How do you get in touch with your travelers? When you guys are providing a group benefit to a corporation, how are they accessing that info? How are you making sure that ultimately that product's getting to travelers?
Oh, we froze.
And we started uncovering some of the very same. It was really kind of a very easy transition for us to make. But once we realized the scope of it, that's when we said, hey, we really need to dig down and make sure that everyone knows about what we're doing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The applications that you're pointing out, my mind is starting to populate like 6 or 7 or 8 other applications. I'm like thinking as an investor, right? The market size for this opportunity is quite large, right? But how do you even quantify all of the ways that this could be useful, right? You talked about travel insurance when I'm abroad and I have my phone stolen or wallet stolen, or a flight canceled, or when I'm on the side of the road or next to the bedside. Sort of, can you talk about the perils where you think that this is going to be most valuable to the customer?
Sure, no, absolutely. You bring up a great point, and I think this is where, from a small company to a small company perspective, this is when focus is so important. Because we do get quite a bit of requests from people saying, "Oh, this could be used here, this could be used there." From the problem we're really ultimately solving is connecting an organization to its constituents. That's really, we're going to boil it at the highest level. That's what Keynectup is able to do. But that doesn't make for a great business either, because if you're selling to everyone, you're selling to no one, right?
Correct.
And so we really wanted to stay focused on where we could most directly make a positive impact for the consumer. And that's safety. That really is right now such a crucial challenge for consumers that we're seeing everywhere, is that they're provided a product, they're provided a service, they're taking the right steps that protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But like you mentioned earlier, when the rubber meets the road, because that's what we're really talking about, that crucial point where no more theories, no more underwriting calculations. The event has happened, someone's in that situation. How are we going to help them? How can we make sure they get them there? And that's really where we felt that we could make the strongest use case for our kind of audience and for our founders. And it's been tremendous so far. And we've been able to help thousands of people get to the products that have been provided for them and that they've purchased in many cases.
Yeah, just by picking up the phone, which I don't know about you, but I like never leave home without this device, right? If I'm on the ends of the earth, hopefully at least I'll have service enough to make a phone call. I don't always have service enough to access the internet, scroll through pages. I don't always have the luxury and the liberty to be able to successfully navigate a website. I'm thinking again about parents and seniors who aren't digital natives. To be able to find that contact information, just sort of meeting the customer where they're at with the technology that they already have in their pocket. It's as simple as making a phone call. So tell me how the tech works a little bit. Do I call Keynectup? Do I have a specific phone number for my specific carrier? Like, can you talk me through the tech, how behind the scenes, I'm making it sound so simple, but I'm sure there's a little bit of setup involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about kind of some of the things we're able to do with the tech. It's actually simpler than you think, because really the magic of our technology is actually figuring out how that contact can fit on that unique device. Because every phone, so I'm an Android user, I have a Pixel 3. Kieran, you have an iPhone, I believe, right?
It's currently like most iPhones.
But as long as it works, right? And well, the main difference is we have very different operating systems, right? And so our contacts, believe it or not, is structured differently internally. And so Keynectup's magic sauce is we're essentially able to determine what kind of device that person has and how we can optimize the information for it. And that's a little bit how the sausage is made. That's really kind of where our tech is as an X factor. But in terms of building the cards, it's actually quite simple. What we do is we are really just the foot in the door from kind of a digital engagement perspective for our carriers. So in many cases, we're not providing any of the information that our carriers are putting down to us. We are having them determine what is key for them, because as you can imagine, every carrier has a different kind of set of tools that they're using to engage their customers. A more advanced carrier might have a text to claims line that we can embed in the card so they can always text it, text for a claim. Another might just have a general phone number that we need to embed in there. But what's really great about our technology for the carriers is we offer that flexibility and customization for them. So we can put in their logo, we can put in a label clearly identifying their company or even their product they're using. We can do up to 20 phone numbers, 20 emails, and 20 web links, plus all your different social medias. So if you have a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a YouTube channel, all those sort of things can be baked right into the card. And it's really just a conversation we have with carriers saying, what kind of information do we need to get to your end user? And then ultimately, how can we make sure that it is representing your brand correctly? And then once the cards are decided and the content is built, then it's just a matter of getting in front of their end users through channels they've already built.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean, they have their phone numbers, right?
Yeah, or they already, in many cases, are providing this information in one way, right? I mean, it's not like their letter of confirmation, it doesn't have those tools in it. We're just trying to simplify and make them more visible to that end user and actionable right in their device. So most of the times we just take a letter of confirmation and we say, hey, okay, you're providing the policy number, you're providing the details of what they're covered for in terms of their policy and who they need to call, where they can access this information. So we just take a lot of that and we just put it right on the card. So that end user is just getting what they signed up for, right?
Right. Or yeah, access to what they signed up for. Do you think, I mean, it just strikes me, maybe it's a too obvious question of like, why doesn't this already exist before Keynectup? Do you think that there's some sort of perverse incentive to making it a little bit difficult for people to contact their insurance carrier? Like, why wouldn't this exist?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions, Gary. You really well, the reason why I think this doesn't exist in other cases is mainly actually the difficulty. So even though I described kind of our magic cell, what we're able to do that's different, that's an incredibly difficult kind of line of code and logic to develop from a development perspective, because you're now at this point talking about how many different popular phone people use. I mean, just on the Android side, there's at least 4 or 5 major manufacturers that all modify that system differently. iOS is constantly coming out with updates. So we've had a team for the past several years that has been monitoring these things and adapting Keynectup to work with these different devices. And if a company wanted to go develop this themselves, they're going to have to go hire a team of developers. They're going to have to spend so many months and years developing the R&D. And then for what? To go to your VP and say, we developed a contact card? You know, there's a little certain, there's not as much.
Our customers, and our customers can call us. Yeah, it seems like not a huge value add until you really think about it.
Exactly. And in many cases, we just say, I mean, we've had a number of people come to us and say, oh, well, why am I going to go work with Keynectup if this is something I could go develop myself? And in many cases, I say, because you're going to waste all that time, you're going to waste all that money just to end up with a quirky product, because you're still going to have years of R&D to do to get to where we are. It's just more effective for you just to work with someone who's already doing it. And in many cases, because we're not an app, we don't have all the overhead that many mobile apps do. So in many cases, we're a very, very affordable way of connecting those carriers with their customers.
Beautiful. Yeah, it strikes me that by the time a carrier got around to, or really any large corporation got around to developing its own custom software, like we would have iPhone 30s, right? Like we would be on a much later model. And then it's outdated. You know, carriers experience this all the time with legacy systems, and thinking about more flexible approaches to adopting new technology and staying current with a pace of technology that is moving very fast. So it strikes me that value proposition is very solid, that your team is keeping on top of the next coolest iPhone, iWatch, you know, technology that's going to enable the carriers to contact their customers and have them contact them no matter what. Um, my my kind of final few questions, I think, are largely around vision, because look, in the era of, the newest, coolest flying technology, a phone card, a contact card, seems so, again, so simple it's stupid we need to have it today. But is there a longer term play, like with the data you're generating, or the ability to push notifications, or the ability to monitor how folks are using this data, that there's also a data play here sort of under the surface that could bring additional value to the carriers or their customers?
Sure. I mean, there is a number of opportunities that are with our technology here, and I mean, I even think of home systems, right? I'm a big Google Home user, and because my Google account is linked to my phone here, all my contacts are accessible now by my Google Home. So even one of the potential applications for us is now you're talking about maybe an older crowd where they do have some type of home system purchased by either themselves or a younger audience, and now they fall down, they need help, or something were to happen, and they are away from their phone. Now they could say, activate the Google command and say, call the insurance company or whatever it may be. So our system, because we use that app that already is funneled through a lot of different technologies, we can go really far and wide with other techs that are coming out that are based on this type of operating system, this kind of information. And not to say that there's not plenty of opportunity for engagement, right? So how can we determine what pieces that our customers are prioritizing? Are they still calling us by phone? Are they texting us? Are they visiting our webpage? And once again, we could certainly host any kind of plans that a carrier might have. So if you're actively monitoring a specific web page for a group customer that you built this page for, we could tell you very quickly, we could have a special link just for the Keynectup card. So that way they're seeing how many people are actually going from the Keynectup card to this web page. And I know there's a number of companies, we don't provide this ourselves, but there's a number of them that will monitor phone usage. So they'll have like a phone forwarding service where they can kind of do the same thing and mark the engagements. So certainly all of those are opportunities for us to put those on our card and see exactly what ways that customers are actually choosing to engage with us.
Yeah. And it strikes me that I think a really important takeaway of what you just said is that you sort of have a distribution strategy that's self-perpetuating. The more devices we connect to our phones, the broader the reach you'll have. So for carriers that are looking to make entrees into your car, your home, your workplace, where they want more touch points with their customers, it strikes me that the channel, while it may be somewhat archaic, is a phone to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
You're
you're
like, yeah,
seeing this
that's
everywhere, right?
the
That's everywhere. I mean, we were chatting about how your phone can provide all this data, all this usage, and in many cases, especially one thing I think that we're not thinking as actively about is our audiences are only getting younger too, right? That digital literacy is only increasing with every decade, right? And so eventually I think we're kind of at a middle ground here because we have this one side of the population who might not be as familiar with the technology and still might not trust a lot of it. And I think Facebook has done a good job of verifying that for us in many cases. But then you also have this other side of the coin where we have a younger audience who's demanding more and more digital services. And so what's left carriers in the middle of this is how do we develop tools that help us grow that audience 5 years in advance, 10 years in advance, 20 years in advance, but how do we also not alienate the current customers we have? And I think that's where Keynectup can really help with that transition because, once again, we're meeting customers where they are. A grandmother might not know how to download an app or go visit a podcast, but she knows how to take pictures of her grandchildren. And in many cases, people aren't aware that you can still scan, or you can now scan a QR code with your camera app. So how hard would it be for us to truly educate that market to the point where we can say, actually, we can give you and provide you a digital service that meets you where you currently are? And then we can support the mobile apps and other things that they develop as they get prepared for that younger audience.
For sure, absolutely. Like the levels of sophistication can always be increased, but creating a simple product is not easy. I think it was Mark Twain that said, like, I wanted to write you a one-page love letter, but I wrote you four, as a sort of sardonic way of saying, like, it takes more time to do things that seem really small, or to do things smaller. It's easier to build complexity into a product without a lot of effort. And so I want to applaud Keynectup and your efforts, Bradley, at getting this product into the hands of carriers. So carriers out there, make sure you connect with Bradley. We'll put his contact information below in the podcast. But also for those that feel like this is a product that they want and they engage in, I always encourage customers to feel empowered to contact your carrier and say, hey, like, I want your phone number in my phone in case I have an emergency. Because the more we hear it from customers, the more I think the demand for such a very simple and thoughtful solution will grow. So Bradley, it has been a pleasure to have you on the golf course. I know this conversation will lead to a lot more business for Keynectup, but I want to have more conversations like this on the podcast and on the golf course, where new business ideas that are tackling old problems in straightforward and meaningful ways have an opportunity to reach audiences. So Bradley, thank you so much for being on the golf course. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie Ann, for having me. It's been incredible to talk all things technology, customer engagement, the future, the past, where we are. Always happy to talk about what's going on in insurance and technology today. And who knows? Maybe I'll make it for another round, right?
Yeah. You know what I was just thinking, Bradley, we should do is put your QR code or a QR code that can connect to Keynectup into the podcast if we can. And then that way folks can even see the technology, can demo the technology and see how simple and straightforward it actually is.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, then, while I'm saying this, you should click on the QR code that's going to cover up my face and make sure to connect with Bradley while you have the opportunity. Again, this has been The Golf Course and your host, Carrie Ann Nadeau, founder and CEO, with Bradley Adams, the Director of Partnerships for Keynectup. Check them out, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Awesome. Take care, Carrie Ann.